Hey, welcome to the vlog ride home. Hey, traffic even on weird alternate routes that I'm only on because I was running errands this afternoon after work. It's great. I feel so domesticated right now. Anyway, as of date of recording, it is Monday, June the 3rd. It is the beginning of Pride Month. So I wanted to talk about something Pride related. And I want to talk about it from the point of view of being a writer and a critic and an English major. And that is pronouns. I wanted to talk about pronouns, and I wanted to talk about the excuses I have heard for misusing pronouns, and why, from the perspective of somebody who is a writer and a critic and an English major, why those excuses don't really hold up. So let's get started. Before we do, though, I want to first state I am cisgender. If you are not familiar with what that is, like you've heard it but you don't really know what it means, or if you've heard it referred to only pejoratively, what it means is that when I was born, female was put on my birth certificate, and I identify and live as a woman. That's all that means. That's all cisgender means, is that the gender you were assigned at birth matches the gender you live as. It's not a pejorative term, though I've heard cisgender people complain that it is. Every once in a while I see it used pejoratively, but not very often. More often than not, it is just used in a descriptive sense. So, when I say very rarely, I mean, in Facebook groups by single individuals, one or two times, not in any way that is actually significant, or part of any major discourse. It is not used pejoratively, as far as I am aware, in any academic sense. Certainly the left tubers that I follow have never used it pejoratively, even those who are not themselves cisgender. So yeah, it is itself a neutral, just simply descriptive term. I'm going to be talking about some stuff. Being that I am not transgender, I cannot, and I am not non-binary, I cannot describe what the existence of that is in a meaningful way for a conversation like this. So I'm going to be talking about some stuff, and understand that what I'm talking about is limited to the usage of pronouns. I am not making an analogy for, or a metaphor of, or in any way describing what it is to be non-binary or transgender. The importance of that statement will become apparent in a few minutes, because I know if I don't say this, that somebody is, if somebody happens to happen along my videos, that'd be nice, that, somebody is going to try and say, oh, ho, 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 and I do not want somebody who is transgender to think that this is how I view or how I am trying to present being transgender, because it is not. And I do not want somebody who is themselves transphobic to point to what I say as a reason to dismiss trans identity. Again, I'm not describing what it is to be trans, or what it is to be non-binary in anything that I say here. I am talking about how we, mostly cisgender people, use pronouns to talk about people who are not cisgender, and how some people will misuse those. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am very supportive of transgender people and non-binary people. I am not perfect, so if you're transgender, if you're non-binary, and there is something that I don't get right, or you feel that it would be better if I were to clarify as somebody who is cisgender and speaking to other cisgender people, please let me know. You can comment, you can hit me up on Twitter, whatever you are comfortable with, because if I get something wrong, I am more than happy and very much would want to correct it. So there you go there. I'm myself bisexual, so LGBT issues are very important to me. I have people I know who are either gender non-binary or gender queer or gender fluid. I also have people very close to me who are themselves transgender, both trans men and trans women. So from the point of view of people I care about being affected by trans acceptance and trans rights, these things are very, very important to me. So there you go. All right, so all that said, let's actually for really reals get started. I'll start with the easy one, I guess. I don't know that either one of them for people who just insist on misusing pronouns is quote unquote easy, but it is the simpler one to talk about right now in this context, and that is the non-binary use of they and them. That is to say, the use of they and them as singular pronouns instead of the plural pronouns that they are typically used as. I will see all the time people complain about how this is confusing and why don't you just make up a new pronoun? Well, making up new words means that you have to have the clout to make new words get picked up. And while I would love it to be different, unfortunately the people that it most matters to don't always have the social clout to make new words get picked up. That making new words and getting them put into usage is not an easy thing to do. Like, if you want a nickname for yourself, just getting people to call you by that nickname. Like, my first name, Lynn. That is not my full first name. And I have family members who will still not call me Lynn, because I was not born Lynn. I was born with my full first name, and it used to drive me insane. But over time, you just get used to it. You know, so I am one person with family members trying and failing to get them to call me Lynn. When you're talking about creating or adopting from somewhere else a whole new word, and then having that applied over the entirety of a population of English speakers, you can kind of get the idea how challenging that is. And I have seen non-binary people try to push for new pronouns, and they just don't get adopted. So a lot of my talking is a thing I can do. So non-binary people tend to go with they, them. And people will complain that it's confusing because they and them are plural, and we're talking about an individual person. And here's the thing. You've probably used they and them, or at least they, in a singular sense without even thinking about it. And you've used it far longer than non-binary people have asked you to use it. And I believe agender people ask for it too. I think, for the purposes of our discussion, that's included. I think it would be anyway. Again, corrections on stuff I get wrong. As important as these things are, I'm not perfect, right? Lots of information that I collect in my head every day, especially driving home from work and on days like today. Anyway, but you have, even before people were asking you to use it in a singular way to refer to them, you have most likely, without even thinking about it, used they in a singular sense, possibly even them. Because it has become convention in certain circumstances in English to use it. It gets used when you need to refer to either a hypothetical person, that can be male or female, or other, but let's be honest, in academic terms, it tends to just be male and female. Or in referring to a specific person whose identity and gender are unknown and unable to be determined by the context of information that you have. So, some examples. You find a backpack, and you are describing this. Maybe you are writing a note. You have found a backpack. The name on the backpack is Michelle, but the spelling, you are not sure if it is the French spelling for a male Michelle or a female Michelle. So, when you have to use a pronoun to refer to Michelle, you don't say he or she, as you, if you're really old, might have been taught long, long ago in grammar school. You would say they, because you don't know their gender, you do not want to assume their gender, and you need a quick shorthand, and we do not have any other genderless pronouns that do not refer to objects. So you end up saying they or them. Real simple example, right? This is done all the time. I do remember being in like maybe middle school, maybe that late, and still being told to use he or she when I was speaking hypothetically or about a person of unknown gender. But I remember in college, English courses, but I also pretty sure this came up in high school, that, instead of he or she, because that is long and stupid, to just use they, that using they is appropriate. At one point, he was favored, but that fell out of style, because if the person could hypothetically be a woman, so they ended up becoming the shorthand when it's hypothetical or specific but gender unknown. And that's just an English convention, right? That has nothing to do with anybody saying, I want you to refer to me as they. So if you're going to say that they has never been used in a singular sense, except now, miraculously, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong, and if you think about it, you know you're wrong. Think about it. You've done it, most likely. So there is no reason not to do it when you're asked. And let's just be honest. If somebody introduces themselves to you and says, my name's Mike, you might think in your head, you look more like a John, but you're not going to call them John. If they tell you their name is Mike, you're going to call them Mike. If you know their name is Michael, but they say, call me Mike, you're not going to call them Michael unless you're like my older family members. You're going to call them Mike because it's what they asked you to do. And you're going to remember, and you're not going to be confused by it because it's what they've told you that they want you to call them. And that's it. And by the way, if you haven't even noticed, a Michael, presumed male, I'm still referring to as they, very easily, very simply, it's just rolling off my tongue because, again, singular theys aren't unheard of at all in the English language. So there you go. There is your logic for the singular they and the fact that you probably use it. You don't even think about it. And it's no more difficult than somebody telling you their name and remembering their name. It's actually much simpler. I have so many problems with names when I first meet people. Like we got this new person at work. I don't remember her name. I don't. I'm going to probably see her at work tomorrow and I don't remember her name. And we're in an office of like, hold on, there's me, there's Lala, there's Lala, there's Lala, there is Boss, there's Lala, and then there's her. So that's like 7 people who are consistently in the office, right? I don't remember this girl's name. So I am horrible at remembering names. I'm so bad at remembering names. So if you're like me and you have trouble remembering names, they is a pretty common word, and it's not like you have to remember, are you Mike, are you Susan, are you Michelle, are you Julie, are you Ashley, are you Gail, are you gay with an E? No, you just remember they. It's one stupid little word. It's not that hard. So do it. You don't have an excuse not to, right? It's easier than remembering names because you're not having to try and remember a plethora of words. You're just having to remember 1 out of 3 words. So yeah, 18 minutes in, we're simple. He and she, right? These are the ones that are used to misgender trans people, right? People will call trans women he, trans men she, though I think this ends up getting heaped on trans women more, maybe, I don't know. Again, there's not a reason based on how words are used and how the English language works for people to misgender trans people. So, like, with they, the excuse is, well, not using they in a plural way is confusing because I never use they in a plural way. Using he and she in a non-biological way is just confusing because they're biological pronouns. It's probably my least favorite excuse and the one that I hear bandied about more often than anything. And, the other reason is the same reason that cis people will get misgendered, right? If you don't think somebody looks like they should have a she pronoun, then, you'll accidentally use the he one. And if they don't look like they should have the he pronoun, you'll accidentally use the she one. And, they'll say something to you and you'll be embarrassed and you'll go, I am so sorry, and you'll correct yourself. This happens, if you're at your work and maybe you're on the phone, or maybe you got the person in front of you and you have to call over your manager, your supervisor, your coworker, and the person standing in front of you looks like a guy and they're cisgendered and they look like a guy, and maybe they even sound like one a little bit, because their voice is a little bit deeper than what you usually associate with somebody who is feminine. And you go, he or his, and they go, excuse me? And you go, oh my God, I did that, didn't I? I am so sorry, ma'am. And it's embarrassing, and they're pissed off, and, but we've all done it. If we don't do it with pronouns, we do it with honorifics. I have done that on the phone quite a few times, because especially if the connection is less than good, you can't always tell, and people still get upset. And if somebody who is cisgender gets upset when you misgender them, how do you think somebody who is transgender feels? ContraPoints is like, yeah, somebody misgendering me ruins my day. She talks about misgendering causing gender dysphoria. I can't really, because I deal with anxiety, I have kind of an idea of what dysphoria would feel like, but it's only like this nebulous kind of, I know it's got to be worse than that, so I would never want you to feel it kind of idea. It's not a, I know exactly how you feel. No, it's more of a empathy generating than anything else. And like I said, it's just based on my own out of skin feelings that come with anxiety. But yeah, to have somebody refer to you in a way that is counter to your identity, but that identity being complicated the way that trans identities are, is just a horrible thing to do to somebody. And to make excuses for doing it is just not good, not even kind of. And this idea that pronouns are biological is stupid, because we don't actually use pronouns that way. Like, I just described to you how you might misuse a pronoun for a cisgendered person, right? Not because you know what their biology is, but just because how they physically look or how they sound to you with their voice. And that has nothing, and like I said, this has nothing to do with biology, right? It's not like people walk around with their penises and vaginas hanging out. That's not how that works. And beyond that, so here is where I'm going to reiterate. I am talking only about pronoun usage. I am not describing in any way, shape, or form what trans identity is. Okay? But we're going to take the best example I can think of where pronouns are not biological. And we're going to do it with a thought experiment. So let's say that you are good old William Shakespeare, and you are sitting down and you are writing your play, Romeo and Juliet. Great play. A little creepy in some ways and a lot problematic, but still a very good play. Some very memorable lines. Or maybe you're writing Hamlet. Or Taming of the Shrew. Or Much Ado About Nothing. Pick your favorite Macbeth. Pick your favorite Shakespeare play that has male and female characters in it. I don't care which one it is. Midsummer Night's Dream. So, Shakespeare writes his plays, and he's got his acting company. And for the most part, in Shakespeare's day, actors were male. I think at one point you started to get female plays or female actors, but any female actors during Shakespeare's time would have been exceptions. And understanding, and what's always been taught in every English class I've ever been in, is that the performers of Shakespeare's plays during Shakespeare's time were all men, whether the roles were men or women, right? So on stage, Juliet's being played by a dude. On stage, Juliet got a penis. But while you're Shakespeare and you're sitting there and you're writing Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, or Lady Macbeth and Macbeth or the Witches, or you're writing Midsummer Night's Dream, or The Tempest, or Othello, or Much Ado About Nothing, or Hamlet, and on and on. And you're writing the female characters. As you're writing, there is no biology for these characters, right? They're not real. They're not physical. There's no physical manifestation of them. They are only words on a page. And they are images and shapes in your imagination. You are not building them from the ground up, as if they are a synth in, the Institute's labs. They are just images. And when you get to a point where somebody is referring to them and you have to write a pronoun for them, do you refer to Juliet as a he or a she? I'll give you a second to think about it. Most likely, and what Shakespeare did, you refer to Juliet as a she, or her, or hers. It is feminine pronouns that are used to refer to Juliet, to Lady Macbeth, to Catherine, to any of the female characters in Shakespeare's plays. If a pronoun is used to refer to them, it is a feminine pronoun. If it is a male character, it's a male pronoun. But again, it's all boys on stage, so we're not worried about the boys right now. Always the female pronouns. Alright, so female pronouns. There we go. That's what's in the play. Like, you can go look them up if you want. Okay, so here you are. You're putting on the play. Biologically, on that stage, Juliet is a man. Juliet is being played by a man who identifies as a man. Probably lives his life as a man when he is off stage. And has a penis, all those things. You know, they don't know about chromosomes in Shakespeare's day, but if they did, probably had XY chromosomes. Probably, not necessarily. But in either case, the actor is a guy. And, biologically, on the stage, Juliet is male. Because now, Juliet has a biology. There is an actor playing her. So when you're on stage and you're having to give direction, or you're an actor and you're having to use that pronoun to refer to Juliet, knowing that Juliet is biologically a man because a man is playing Juliet, or Lady Macbeth, or whoever, do you, when it comes time to use a pronoun, use the feminine pronoun for the character or the masculine pronoun for the actor? So if you've ever gone to a Shakespeare play, well, it doesn't matter these days because we have all genders doing plays, but let's say you could take a time machine back and go and watch a play, you're going to hear the female pronoun on stage spoken by people. Why? Well, because the character of Juliet is a woman or a girl. Lady Macbeth is a woman. The witches are women. Catherine is a woman. And on and on and on. Right? And why is the pronoun used? Well, because on stage, they're a woman, and it'd be confusing if you used a male pronoun, right? Well, here's the thing. Trans people are truer in their gender identities, trans women as women, trans men as men, than an actor on stage cross-dressing as a character. And I use the term cross-dressing in terms of acting in Shakespeare's day, not in terms of drag, because that's complicated too. There's not a reason to use pronouns, quote-unquote, biologically, because we don't do that, right? We use pronouns based upon our perception, how someone looks or feels to us, the impression that they give us of what they are. Are they male or female? And then we use them based on what they tell us, right? When we misgender that woman who is standing there because she doesn't look feminine to us, or she doesn't sound feminine on the phone, she tells us. If someone is a woman, they're a woman. It doesn't matter the chromosomes, because not all women are XX chromosomes, not all men are XY chromosomes. And it does not matter what is between their legs. Biological pronouns are bullshit. It's not how we use them. It is not the convention of language to be defined by a biology. Language is defined by its social usage, and it is expedient and polite to use pronouns correctly, especially if you look at somebody and go, they ought to have a female pronoun because that's how they look. And that person reinforces it. So do it. Don't make excuses. Do what's right and reality and polite and healthy for the other person. And I've reached my destination, as you might have heard from my map going ding ding ding. So yeah, that's it. talking about pronouns from the perspective of being a writer and a critic and an English major, and how they're used, and how, based on how they're used, there's not an excuse for misusing them. Be nice to people. Don't be an asshole. Don't do something that is going to cause someone mental and emotional distress. That's the most important thing I can tell you with this. Don't be a douche. And if you like this, please like, share, subscribe. You want to talk, comment, hit me up on Twitter, whatever. Peace.